Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. So, uh, last week when I went to the comic book shop, the local comic book shop owner, who is a huge Valiant fan, finally sold me on giving Valiant a shot, and he did so by loaning me his personal copy of the books to read. And I did a video praising that and essentially arguing that we need those kinds of comic book shops to exist for the health of the industry, because I would never spend money on Valiant unless I had an enthusiastic person kind of helping making it easier for me to give it a shot. So this was Ninja K. It was Weaponeer Ninja K. It's a paperback collecting 5 issues, and this was really good. So 1 through 5 are the regular story. The Lost Files is sort of a mini story, and it's published in chapters in between each issue, and then it's a gallery of extra covers, and there's some extra little pages detailing his weaponry, and it's like they've got notes on Psychoval along with it. So I've bookmarked one thing that is really cool that I don't want to forget talking about, so I thought I'd just flip through and make a few general comments on the art and the story. For the main story, maybe it's a brother combo, but it looks like the penciler inker combo are Clayman and Seth Man, and they're generally quite strong, stronger than a lot of Marvel books I've read this year, and it kind of reminds me of early 2000s sort of John Romita Jr. Spider-Man, that era of Marvel comics when I was reading those. And I describe Ninja K, it's almost like he's sort of a weird alternate take on Batman mixed with Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid, because he's got a butler like Alfred. Oh, by the way, summa trigerum, summa spoilerum, summa tangentum. Since I'm doing storybook time, I'm going to probably spoil plot points. So continue watching if you're okay with that. Anyway, every issue, as a trade paperback, I read it in one sitting and it was engrossing. Every issue works well on its own too. I can hear where they're giving you the details of what you need to know, and each one has its own punch. So issue 1 is about this mysterious lady, kind of reminds me from something out of Elfon Lied, like walking down the halls in a prison, murdering a bunch of dudes, very, very attractively drawn. And then she turns around and there's Ninja K, and he's quoting the samurai movie from his childhood. So he's got some brashness to him, he's got some sort of masculine self-confidence, and he looks pretty cool. So I dig that. They have a fight, and then it's revealed that Ninja K wasn't trying to kill her, he was trying to keep her from blowing herself up because there were fail-safes in the computer system, and he lets her go. And he looks back on his time with his abusive butler. Then we meet him and his handler at his castle, and we get the setup for his next mission, which is to infiltrate the Weaponeer program and take down all seven of its kind of the shadow members of it. And the first one, the only one they know about, he works for the MI6, or essentially the British version of the CIA. The only one they've been able to identify is this big sumo wrestler dude, Cannon. And since Cannon is mistrustful, he has Ninja K go through this sort of series of embarrassing trials to prove that he's trustworthy and to prove that he's capable. He continues to have flashbacks to the butler's name, I think, is Elaine. I just keep calling him Alfred, the creepy Uncle Alfred in my head, because that's the closest reference point I have to what he's like. And it's a little weird, like, why don't his parents know about this? I guess that's the point of an abusive relationship, is sometimes they can be based on people who are trusted, but I was okay. I was down for it. They're trying to give him some like pain and some psychological trouble from his childhood, and then they're connecting that to him being a very resilient, but also somewhat brittle person in his adulthood. So this is an example of Lost Files, and it's got a very different art style. Let's look at the artist. So for Lost Files, let's get that to focus. The artist is Butch Guisse, and for the last 3 issues there was a different inker, Brian Thies. This looks a lot more photo referenced at the very least, maybe even using posterized photo effects. So I didn't dig this quite as much. There's sort of like a speckly patchwork to the line, which I think is a tell of using using photos, relying very heavily on photos at some stage. Whereas the bros, I want to learn these guys' names. The man, Clay Man and Seth Man, the Man Bros, they do. They get a more consistent, kind of pretty look by building everything up. So I'm sure there's reference at some point to get all these faces and poses, but they're drawing everything, so it just looks fresher to my eye. The Lost Files stories tell a continual story of when he was a young recruit, being initiated into MI6, and his handler Angela. And each story is kind of a little mini-sode of him gaining experience. So he was in North Korea pretending to be young and in love with his handler, and then there was a mix-up where they got waylaid by some hoodlums, and he tells her to run and save herself while he tries to take him out, and he gets the snot beaten out of him. So there's a tendency for him to suffer severe physical consequences, even though he's a ninja badass. They kind of repeat the notion again and again that he's primarily a spy. He's primarily about sneaking around, and he probably should avoid physical interactions. And one of the ways they reinforce that is he gets his butt kicked a lot even though he looks cool in the fights he's in. He gets his butt kicked a lot in the fights where he gets caught and he has to fight his way out. I'm going to go ahead and just skip ahead to the little moment I noticed. So as he's continuing to endure Cannon's, what do you call him? He's enduring Cannon's, what's it called? It's like when you take a college student, they initiate a freshman and they do a bunch of mean stuff to them. I completely forgot the train of thought of what that word is. Oh well. So he's having to endure, Cannon tells him to go shoot someone in the back of the head, and he's psychologically profiled everyone here. He stole the itinerary. That was what I was going to say. What I was going to say is when he does something smart and he does a lot of preparation, they explain to you what the smart thing he does is. So that I didn't notice that. Is that supposed to be like a virtual reality thing or something? But anyway, they explain why what he's doing is smart by showing you what he's doing. So it's not like he just shows up there and says, aha, I already know everything I need to know about everyone here. They give you the details of how he figured these things out. So he scanned Cannon's computer to get the itinerary and find out where the location was. He arrived there and put, I guess, like little mini cameras or drones around the area so he could get a feel for it. But then he had a feel that someone was watching him. And who is that someone? Is that Dre? Is that Dre? Diversity in comics has forever changed the way I read comic books, guys. So let's get this to focus again. Come on, you. Focus. There we go. That was the bookmark. That was the fun little thing I caught. So, I'll just show you what he does. So now that he knows everyone who's in there and he knows what they're guilty of, at first it looks like he's just picking the worst guy, the human trafficker, and that's the one he's going to shoot in the back of the head. But he has a low caliber bullet and he aims it so it ricochets off the back of the guy's skull, and he lives. So I didn't see Ninjak kill anybody in this book. It seems like he's at least concerned for preserving life, even though he's a government assassin. So some people do die off screen, but they seem to be concerned with not having him, freaking murder a whole bunch of people. He'll take them out. They're probably going to be in the hospital for months or years, but he's not too quick to kill just for the sake of killing. And then Roku comes back. This is the girl with the long red, dangerous murder hair that he saved from the Russian prison. And they have a fight. Then the issue after that, they flash back. Oh, this was an interesting bit. I like this change of illustration styles. This was a little creepy though. So it's a sort of like a Nancy Drew mystery children's book, and it's about a butler poisoning the tea, and then it shows him Alain. The butler's real name is Alain. I keep thinking of him as Alfred. Alfred McAlain, abusive face. He's about to drink the tea, and then Ninjak just has this little smile, and the butler thinks he's done something to his tea. So are they implying that he poisoned his butler's tea as a little child? Ew, that'd be creepy. Or are they just saying that he's smiling, thinking about that, kind of as sort of a immature wish fulfillment. He's imagining his butler getting poisoned, and the butler notices that and then goes into evil, abusive mode. Anyway, yeah, so every issue they give you a little bit of a flashback of Ninja K's childhood, and they give you a solid little self-contained adventure story. And it's more emphasis on spycraft than it is on beating the snot out of people. But though you do get some of that too. So he puts Cannon to sleep by spiking his wine and goes looking around trying to get the names of all the other members of Weaponeer. And he gets pushed out the window by Roku. Then I'm going to skip over the Lost Files one. It seems to be setting up some supervillain that he's got a real beef with. So out he goes from the window, and there's this cool mid-air fight where he uses his technology. He's kind of augmented with technology, and he's got to assess his whole situation and quickly take care of everything. This is a little bit of a kind of cheesy Chinese kung fu movie magic nonsense, but whatever. It was pretty cool. One finger strike, and he discombobulates her and gets out of there. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I want to find Roku's backstory. So pretty much this issue just continued with him, blasting his way back up to Cannon. He knocks out a whole bunch of guards, and then Cannon reveals that he's known he's Ninja K this whole time, and the fight is set up. I'm going to skip over the missing files. This is a recommend, by the way, so go pick it up. I think you will enjoy it. It's just a solid... all by itself, this is a solid action comic, and I enjoyed it, and I don't know if I'm ready to dive headlong into the Valiant universe, but I'm interested in these two characters now, and I'm definitely interested to maybe dip my toes into it a little bit more. So, Roku's past is told by a completely different set of artists. Let's get their names. They have a very grungy, almost a horror comics style. So that one was done by, here we go, Juan Jose Rip, Clément Sethman, and Marguerite Sauvage. I don't know what Marguerite Sauvage did, maybe the color, but Juan Jose Rip is credited as the penciler for this whole story. So it's not as pretty a style, but it works really well with the subject matter, because Roku, all we know about her before who she was, she's lost her memory, and she wakes up buried in like this deep underground cavern, and she's trying to survive. She's trying to dig her way out, and somehow the shaman magic kung fu temple stuff turns her hair into like this blood color and gives her complete control over every cell of her body. And they do this really interesting bit where they go back and forth between like a childhood story. She remembers about a little girl going deep into a mountain looking for her brother, but her brother has an impossibly long name, and the little girl can't remember her brother's name. And she can't remember who she is, and she's going through a cavern. So, not thematically, but there are plot points, there are details from this story that she's remembering as she goes on her quest underground. And each time she faces an opponent, the nature of the challenge builds and increases. And I'm really interested to figure out what this is. I think it's called... Well, my only lead onto what the story might be is her adopting the little girl's name as her name. So it's like Roku Rokuba or something like that. So first she beats an Oni, and then she has to survive off rats. And then she runs into one of whatever these big fat Japanese-looking demons is, and it asks her for her name. And this triggers something in her memory where my name is significant. She has to, after she kills this Oni dude, she has to use cannibalism to survive because she's underground trying to live. And then there's this really bizarre fight scene, which I kind of dig, because it's implying something. This is sort of like, months ago I read an infamous Iron Man comic, and I hated it because it had Mephisto kind of breaking character and telling the audience, hey guys, we're fighting at a super high level. This is like a super duper samurai fight. And I was just cringing because it was bragging about how super awesome the fight was. This is a better example of a bit like that. She runs into this faceless woman, and the faceless woman asks her for her name, and then it goes dark. And in Roku's internal monologue, she realizes she doesn't have sight, she doesn't have thought, she doesn't have the ability to move. So she relies on the sense of smell. And then in the dark, she describes killing this lady, and then the light the lights come back on. So even though this character didn't have much of a chance to make an impression, what's implied happened is a fight in the dark where her life was on the line and she had to use her sense of smell and I think her control over her hair to kill her opponent. And it was really creepy, and it's just a good example of if you want to do a bit where there are, I don't know, superpowered beings who move so fast or move silently in the dark, it's good to go dark and to help me understand what the fight was, but make it powerful by making me try to imagine what the fight was. Now, I try to imagine what the fight was like in my head, and it seems cool because of that. It's like Sauron. Sauron in The Lord of the Rings, the movie, they made him a giant flaming eyeball, but Sauron in The Lord of the Rings is a very mysterious character. Very little is seen or heard of him except just by people speaking about him, and there's a primal fear in that. So The Lord of the Rings is one of the greatest things ever written, but this is just a good example of using the unknown and using the darkness to imply something kind of primally terrifying without beating me over the head over it. Okay, so here she is remembering the child's story again, and she says, my name is Roku Rokubi. So I'll try to look that up to see what might have inspired this little story. So I dug that. And then it goes back to Ninja K. He has a fight. I think I'm going to end storybook time with Uncle #1 Marmaduke fan here, because I feel like I mostly wanted to talk about the art, and I think I'm recommending this. I think you'll dig it. Solid action comic. I'll let you find out what happens between Ninja K and his fight with Roku and Canon and how that turns out. But a solid self-contained trade paperback and a excellent introduction to the Valiant universe for me. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. Go support your local comic book shop. And I promise before I move, I will tell you about my awesome comic book shop. And if you're ever in the area, definitely go there. Because thank you, comic book store owner, for giving me your personal copy of this book to get me interested. I'm interested. It worked. Catch you guys later.